everybody. It's Miss Amy at the Grass Valley Library. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode of Random Acts of Science. This week, as part of our summer learning program, we are doing a deep dive into the country of Egypt. And Egyptians really valued and were fascinated with the afterlife, which is what happens after we die. So they believed that if the body was preserved, that would be a better experience for people who had died and were moving on into the afterlife, especially their kings and queens and pharaohs and all of the rich and important people in their culture. So they would preserve the body by embalming it, which is what we do today to bodies as well, but they did it with the materials that they had on hand. So we're going to try something similar with an apple. This experiment takes about a week. You're going to have to come back and see how it went. But we're going to see what happens when we embalm or mummify an apple. So for this experiment, hopefully you have all these things at home. You're going to need an apple. You're going to need a knife and hopefully a parent that can help you with that. You're going to need 2 plastic cups, some table salt, and some baking soda. And that's pretty much it. So let's walk through how this works. The first thing you're going to do is take your apple. You're going to cut it in half. You're going to take one of those halves, take a bite. You're not going to need that. The other half, you're going to cut in half again until you have 2 quarters. With each one of the quarters, you're going to put them in one of the plastic cups, just like that. So 1 apple is going to be the control, and in an experiment, the control is the one that you don't do anything to. So we know what would happen if you didn't do all the other things we're going to do to this apple. So 1 is the control. That we'll get back to in just a bit. With the other apple, we are going to mummify it. We are going to add a desiccant. So a desiccant is just a fancy word for a substance that draws moisture out of another material. So for the Egyptians' case, they used a substance called natron, which is a naturally occurring mineral that they had around them. We're going to use salt and baking soda for this. So what the desiccant does is it draws the moisture. It's going to draw the moisture of this apple, but it would also draw it out of a body. And without moisture, the bacteria that want to get in there and feed on that flesh or the dead plants or any other living thing and start breaking it down into compost, they don't have anything to work with. They live for the water. They need water in order to make that process work. So we're going to try to get all the water out of this apple and see what it looks like a week from now after it's been embalmed for a week. So you're going to put the apple in the cup, and then we're going to add 2.5 tablespoons of salt. So let me do that. I'm going to mix it together, so I'm going to put it in here first. That's about 2.5. And then I'm going to add 5.25 tablespoons of baking soda. So now that we've got that all together, we're going to mix it up a bit. And we're going to pour it over the top of this apple. I'm going to cut a little bit of this apple off just to make sure we have enough to cover it all. And we're going to pour it in there. We kind of want to shake it up, make sure it's all covered. Okay. So now we've got both of our apples and we are ready to put them away in storage and wait for a week. So find a place in your home or a container that is dark and cool and dry. You're going to put both apples away for a week. At the library, I ended up using an extra locker that no one was using. I put them inside. I covered up all the gaps where the light would come in. I duct taped it shut so no one would open it, and I put a sign on it that threatened a curse if they did. So hopefully you have a place in your house that you can construct to keep these safe for a week. And then when you come back, we'll see what happens. So best of luck, and thank you for joining me today for another episode of Random Acts of Science.